Day, you represent Susan Atkins.
That's correct.
Now, I understand the rumor is, and maybe you can confirm it or deny it, that she is going to deny that everything she said on the witness stand in the grand jury is true.
That's correct. She's going to deny all her statements made at the grand jury.
Well, solemn today.
Paul, the judge put off calendar the motion to suppress certain evidence by Susan Atkins.
That's correct, Dick.
Now, maybe you can't comment on it this time. That Susan claims that she was inadequately represented by Mr. Caballero, and that the whole thrust of the defense was to sell a book.
Oh, that is totally untrue. I have personal knowledge that Mr. Caballero was going to save Susan Atkins' life. Now we'll see what happens. Okay. I can say that with some authority, that Susan Atkins couldn't have been better represented by any lawyer in this country. And when you consider the scope of the offenses that are charged in the indictment, and you realize that Mr. Caballero, in effect, saved this young lady's life, I think any statement that she was not adequately represented is totally unwarranted.
Without using the grand jury testimony, would you have an estimate, being familiar with the case, about what the state will have to rely upon now?
Well, from independent knowledge not gained from Ms. Atkins, I've learned that there are independent witnesses to whom she's made statements, quite apart from grand jury testimony. And of course, the people have substantial circumstantial evidence upon which they can rely. And I think that will be the main thrust of the prosecution's case.
Thanks, Paul. Craig, are these records subpoenaed in Ducis Tecum in regard to the removal of Susan Atkins from the facility at any time?
Yes, we received a subpoena Ducis Tecum for records of removal and visits during the month of December.
But you were not called to testify today, so undoubtedly you can't discuss what's in there.
That's correct, sir.
But they do pertain to Susan Atkins?
Yes, they are records concerning her stay at Civil Brand.
And you're the head ramrod over at the jail?
Jail commander, yes, sir.
Thanks, Craig, very much.
Does that have something to do, Craig, with her activities in the jail?
The subpoena is for removal records, orders to remove her from the jail for various appearances, and for persons who visited her during the month of December.
You would have to explain that to me if you can. Remove her where?
A removal order is when a judge orders that a person is taken to a certain court, like the grand jury or a different court, to testify. Any court order is a removal order.
Let me ask you this, Craig, and if you can't comment, just say so. Do these records have anything to do with Susan Atkins being taken from the jail to the attorney's office in Beverly Hills?
I don't think that I can disclose the content of the order, sir.
All right. Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Craig.
Vince, succinctly as you can, what happened in that grand jury is true. Will she be subject to perjury?
She may be. I don't know. She may be.
What will you advise her to do in this instance?
Well, we were trying to have a hearing today to strike a testimony at the grand jury hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do strike that, then they would have to dismiss the indictment. Then they may pursue her for maybe perjury.
I see.
But perjury is better than murder.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Paul, you asked for and were granted a discovery motion in the court this morning. What's that for?
Well, we'd previously asked that the prosecution turn over to us statements of people who had confessed to the Tate and the Labianca homicides. We also asked that the prosecution turn over to us substantial evidence they had in their possession that would indicate that persons other than the now defendants committed the Tate Labianca killings. We want to examine at length and very carefully the statements of other people, the physical evidence of other people. There are a number of people who are prime suspects in the offenses before the court, and we just don't have that information at this time, and we need it in order to prepare our defense. Our defense may well be that persons other than Charles Manson, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten et al. Committed this offense. There is substantial evidence in existence that people other than them committed this offense.
Thank you, Paul, very much.
In my opening statement, I said that these murders were perhaps the most bizarre, savage, nightmarish murders in the recorded annals of crime. And I think that Linda Kasabian's testimony on that witness stand today illustrated what I was saying in my opening statement. She was filled with emotion in describing the first night of horror, the first night of terror. There's no words to describe what she was saying, and only she was there that night. She heard the unbelievable screams, the pleading, the begging. How do you describe what happened that night other than in her words?
What was her vantage point?
Her vantage point, she was in the driveway at first, and she heard these horrible, horrendous screams coming from men and women, constant screams, pleading for their lives, coming from inside the residence. At that point, she ran up to the residence. She wanted the carnage to stop. She saw Frykowski coming out the front door. His face was bathed in blood. He fell into a bush. He staggered up. Then he fell into the lawn. She saw Tex get on top of him, stab him repeatedly, club him over the head. Frykowski was struggling, begging, pleading for his life. He was screaming. And contemporaneous with that, she saw a woman in a white gown who has been identified now as Miss Folger running in the back part of the lawn, and Patricia Krenwinkel chasing after her with an upraised knife. That's basically been her testimony with respect to the murders. Now, she did not see the murder of Sharon Tate or Jay Sebring. The testimony will show that that took place, of course, inside the residence. She, of course, also did testify that she saw Tex point the .22 caliber revolver inside the driver's side of the vehicle and shoot Stephen Parent to death by firing the gun 4 times.
Has she always been this emotional in describing these events?
Every time she comes up to this point, she cannot contain herself and she starts to cry. She's a very sensitive, delicate girl, and I think you glean that from her testimony today on that witness.
And she was not in on the plot from the beginning, she claims, then. She didn't know what was going on until she got there.
Well, her testimony is she thought they were going out on a creepy crawling mission, which was described by her as a mission wherein the members of the family would dress in black and go into strangers' homes in the middle of the night, creeping and crawling and stealing what belonged to them in the first place. Perhaps the correct word would not be steal in their mind.